Good evening and welcome to our daily devotional reading. I hope you had a good day. A lovely Saturday. Saturn's day. Without further ado, let's look inward. Open our hearts and our minds. Take a deep breath. To help you sink deeper into the moment. And let the moment take you where it will. And show you what it will. Then, if you're ready, let's listen to Plato. But then, what is to become of philosophy? Whither shall we turn if the ideas are unknown? I certainly do not see my way at present. Yes, said Parmenides, and I think that arises, Socrates, out of your attempting to define the beautiful, the just, the good, and the ideas generally without sufficient previous training. I notice your deficiency when I heard you talking here with your friend Aristoteles. In my language is Aristoteles and in the Greek, but I'll say Aristotle because that's more familiar to people. The day before yesterday, the impulse that carries you towards philosophy is assuredly noble and divine, but there is an art which is called by the vulgar idle talking, and which is often imagined to be useless, in that you must train and exercise yourself now that you are young, or truth will elude your grasp. And what is the nature of this exercise, Parmenides, which you would recommend? That which you heard Zeno practicing. At the same time, I give you credit for saying to him that you did not care to examine the perplexity in reference to visible things, or to consider the question that way, but only in reference to objects of thought, and to what may be called ideas. Why, yes, he said, there appears to me to be no difficulty in showing by this method that visible things are like and unlike, and may experience anything. Quite true, said Parmenides, but I think that you should go a step further, and consider not only the consequences which flow from a given hypothesis, but also the consequences which flow from denying the hypothesis. And that will be still better training for you. What do you mean? He said. I mean, for example, that in the case of this very hypothesis of Zeno's about the many, you should inquire not only what will be the consequences to the many in relation to themselves, and to the one in relation to itself and the many, on the hypothesis of the being of the many, but also what will be the consequences to the one and the many in the relation to themselves and to each other, on the opposite hypothesis. Or again, If likeness is or is not, what will be the consequences in either of these cases to the subjects of the hypothesis, and to other things, in relation both to themselves and to one another? And so of unlikeness, and the same holds good for motion and rest, of generation and destruction, and even of being and not being. In a word, when you suppose anything to be or not to be, or to be in any way affected, you must look at the consequences in relation to the thing itself, and to any other things which you choose, to each of them singly, to more than one, and to all. And so of other things you must look at them in relation to themselves, and to anything else which you suppose either to be or not to be, if you would train yourself perfectly and see the real truth. What, Parmenides, is that, Parmenides? Is a tremendous business of which you speak, and I do not quite understand you. Will you take some hypothesis and go through the steps? Then I shall apprehend you better. That, Socrates, is a serious task to impose on a man of my years. Then will you, Zeno? Said Socrates. Zeno answered with a smile. Let us make our petition to Parmenides himself, who is quite right in saying that you are hardly aware of the extent of the task which you are imposing on him. And if there were more of us, I should not ask him, for these are not subjects which anyone, especially at his age, can well speak of before a large audience. Most people are not aware that this roundabout progress through all things is the only way in which the mind can attain truth and wisdom. And therefore, Parmenides, I join in the request of Socrates, that I may hear the process again which I have not heard for a long time. When Zeno had thus spoken, Pythagoras, according to Antiphanes' report of him, said that he himself and Aristotle and the whole company entreated Parmenides to give an example of the process. I cannot refuse, said Parmenides, and yet I feel rather like Ibycus, who, when in his old age, against his will, he fell in love, compared himself to an old racehorse who was about to run in a chariot race, shaking with fear at the course he knew so well. This was his simile of himself. And I also experience a trembling when I remember through what an ocean of words I have to wade at my time of life. But I must indulge you, as Zeno says that I ought, and we are alone. Where shall I begin? And what shall be our first hypothesis, if I am to attempt this laborious pastime? Shall I begin with myself, and take my own hypothesis, the one, and consider the consequences which follow on the supposition either of the being or the not being of one? By all means, said Zeno. And who will answer me? He said. Shall I propose the youngest? He will not make difficulties and will be the most likely to say what he thinks, and his answers will give me time to breathe. I am the one whom you mean, Parmenides, said Aristotle. For I am the youngest and at your service. Ask, and I will answer. Parmenides proceeded. If one is, he said, the one cannot be many. Impossible. Then the one cannot have parts and cannot be a whole. Why not? Because every part is a part of a whole, is it not? Yes. And what is a whole? Would not that of which no part is wanting be a whole? Certainly. Then in either case the one would be made up of parts, both as being a whole, and as also as having parts. To be sure. And in either case the one would be many and not one. True. But surely it ought to be one and not many. It ought. Then if the one is to remain one, it will not be a whole and will not have parts. No. But if it has no parts, it will have neither beginning, middle, nor end, for these would of course be parts of it. Right. But then again, a beginning and an end are the limits of everything. Certainly. Then the one, having neither beginning nor end, is unlimited. Yes, unlimited. And therefore formless, for it cannot partake either of round or straight. But why? Why? Because the round is that of which the extreme points are equidistant from the center. Yes. And the straight is that of which the center intercepts the view of the extremes. True. Then the one would have parts and would be many, if it partook either of a straight or of a circular form. Assuredly. But having no parts, it will be neither straight nor round. Right. And being of such a nature, it cannot be in any place, for it cannot be either in another or in itself. How so? Because if it were in another, it would be encircled by that in which it was, and would touch it at many places and with many parts. But that which is one and indivisible and does not partake of a circular nature cannot be touched all round in many places. Certainly not. But if, on the other hand, one were in itself, it would also be contained by nothing else but itself. That is to say, if it were really in itself, for nothing can be anything which does not contain it. Impossible. But then that which contains must be other than that which is contained, for the same whole cannot do and suffer both at once. And if so, one will be no longer one, but two. True. The one cannot be anywhere, either in itself or in another. No. Further consider whether that which is of such a nature can have either rest or motion. Why not? Why? Because the one, if it were moved, would be either moved in place or changed in nature, for these are the only kinds of motion. Yes, and the one, when it changes and ceases to be itself, cannot be any longer one. It cannot. It cannot therefore experience the sort of motion which is change of nature. Time. Clearly not. Then can the motion of the one be in place? Perhaps. But if the one moved in place, must it not either move round and round in the same place, or from one place to another? It must. And that which move in a circle must rest upon a center. and that which goes round upon a center must have parts which are different from the center. But that which has no center and no parts cannot possibly be carried round upon a center. Impossible. But perhaps the motion of the one consists in change of place. Perhaps so, if it moves at all. And have we not already shown that it cannot be in anything? Yes. Then its coming into being is anything. Then its coming into being in anything is still more impossible, is it not? I do not see why. Why? Because anything which comes into being in anything can neither as yet be in that other thing while still coming into being, nor be altogether out of it, if already coming into being in it. Certainly not. And therefore whatever comes into being in another must have parts. And then one part may be in and the other part out of that other. But that which has no parts can never be in one and the same time, neither wholly within nor wholly without anything. True. And is there not a still greater impossibility in that which has no parts and is not a whole? Coming into being anywhere, since it cannot come into being either as a part or as a whole. Clearly. Then it does not change place by revolving in the same spot, nor by going somewhere and coming into being in something, nor again by change in itself. Very true. Then in respect of any kind of motion, the one is immovable. Immovable. But neither can the one be in anything, as we affirm. Yes, we said so. Then it is never in the same. Why not? Because if it were in the same, it would be in something. Certainly. And we said that it could not be in itself and could not be in other. True. Then one is never in the same place. It would seem not. But that which is never in the same place is never quiet or at rest. Never. One then, as would seem, is neither at rest nor in motion. It certainly appears so. Neither will be the same with itself or other, nor again other than itself or other. How is that? If other than itself, it would be other than one, and would not be one. True. And if the same with other, it would be that other and not itself. So that upon this supposition too, it would not have the nature of one, but would be other than one. It would. Then it will not be the same with other, or other than itself. It will not. Neither will it be other than other, while it remains one. For not one, but only other can be other than other, and nothing else. True. Then not by virtue of being one will it be other. Certainly not. But if not by virtue of being one, not by virtue of itself, and if not by virtue of itself, not itself, and itself not being other at all, will not be other than anything. Right. Neither will one be the same with itself. How not? Surely the nature of the one is not the nature of the same. Why not? It is not when anything becomes the same with anything that it becomes one. What of that? Anything which becomes the same with the many necessarily becomes many and not one. True. But if there were no difference between the one and the same, when a thing became the same, it would always become one. And when it becomes one, the same. Certainly. And therefore, if one be the same with itself, it is not one with itself, and will therefore be one and also not one. Surely that is impossible, and therefore the one can neither be other than other nor the same with itself. Impossible. And thus the one can neither be the same nor other, either in relation to itself or other. No. Thus far our scripture of the evening. I had to start giggling at the end because it turned, in my mind, it turned to a Laurie and Fry. Is it Laurie? You, Laurie, yeah. Laurie and Fry sketch or something of that kind. Yeah, I suppose I'm not supposed to read Plato as a comedy sketch, but I couldn't help seeing Laurie and Fry as I was reading. I do have to say it's been in my mind the whole day. If I take anything seriously, if I take you seriously, it's not a very good sign. It means that I probably think of you as a weakling, and therefore something to be protected from reality. If I am playful about anything or with anyone, then it's a sign of respect. That I think you're strong enough. You've got this. I don't have to, but I will have your back. But you've got this. I've got you, but you've got this. So it's not a sign of disrespect when Plato becomes a plaything and something I'm struggling to take a bit seriously at the moment. That being said, let's look at Plato. I wrote down, I can't for the life of me where I heard it, but someone spoke of the dual aspect monism of Spinoza. And when I prepared this text, not when I was reading it, when I read it, I really just saw Laurie and Fry. Fry and Laurie, I don't know which way they went. When I was preparing it, I saw Spinoza. It was Spinoza who came to my mind as I was reading through these strange questions and answers. I'll start at the end again. What I see in this dialogue, because I've read Parmenides, and I will have to read it again, or I want to read it again. I read Parmenides, Zeno, and also Miletus of Samos, the Eleatics. And I think the author said something about after Parmenides, the natural philosophers, they had to deal with him. In whatever philosophy they proposed, they had to deal with what he put on the table. Kind of like a type of Kant, I suppose. And So that I see Plato doing that here. He's taking this philosopher whom everyone needs to take seriously, and he's playing with his ideas. He's putting it in dialogue form, and then I think it is quite cute, and maybe I'm totally projecting here, but I think he chose, because in the other dialogue, of course, he has Socrates represented not only as Socrates, but also by a young man who resembles him physically, and then by a young man who carries his name. So Plato does play with these name carriers as similarities. And so what I'm seeing is how Plato, the Plato, and Aristotle, the Aristotle, his pupil, played with these ideas of Parmenides, and then Plato put it in dialogue form. And because Aristotle was his favorite young companion to play with, he used Aristotle's name, even though the real Aristotle, the Aristotle, could not possibly have been alive yet by the time this make-believe dialogue took place in the time. So that is what I'm seeing here. Plato trying to process, to work with, to incorporate and understand the ideas of this humongous figure, Parmenides. I wrote down different levels of reality, but it's so tempting. I think the what I'm tempted to do is probably what Plato did, if I understand Plato correctly, and indeed propose two different worlds, two different levels of reality. And John plays with that by having an emergence and emanation. So from the bottom up and from the top down, the realities, not just two. He plays with four in a meditation, for instance. The different levels of reality interpenetrate each other and influence each other. So I'm tempted to yes, but because I personally, what I tend to do when I just, my pragmatism, I suppose, how I act, is that there is such a thing as a reality beyond space-time, and that space-time is contained within this reality that we know. And so there is, it seems, the two worlds in my mind. And I'm not sure that I want that there to be two worlds in my mind. So I'm still trying to figure that out. Edit. What way? I will also read Heraclitus. A, because Folly said he likes him. And B, because I think it's relevant, because Parmenides is kind of a reaction to Heraclitus, if I'm not mistaken. The whole movement thing. Everything moves. Nothing moves. Parmenides was indeed a type of Gnostic initiate. If he was inspired by the goddess and instructed by the goddess. Oh, Zeno, in relation to Zeno, so it is an infinite number of tasks performed in a finite task, but this is absurd. So it has an infinite number of tasks to perform in a finite time, but this is absurd. And then I wrote, we live in an absurd reality. You always find what you're looking for, and if you're looking for absurd potential, then you will find it. I think it's a really good practice to play with the idea of, what if what you believed weren't true? Ask yourself that. Truth and wisdom via a roundabout way. And I kind of see the sophist way of doing things in that. Like teaching people to argue for both sides, so that you can come to the truth and wisdom in a roundabout way. Trying to grasp truth not only by strengthening your views, but questioning your views. And opposing your views explicitly even. I think that is very sophistic. And then I also wrote The Importance of Idle Talking a while back. Joe wrote on that as well, I think, or spoke on that. And he mentioned it, I think, as a way to form connection, for koinonia, communion. I'm not quite sure what this text has it as. Thus far, Plato. I hope you have a good night's rest, and may the spirit of Sophia be with you. Now, if you want to have some tea with me, I hope I don't spill the tea. It's in a... Oh shit, maybe I should not open it. No, I'm not going to open it like that, because I'm going to spill it. I'm just going to... If you do want to have some tea with me for talk discussions after the daily devotional reading and contemplation, by all means, grab your tea and let's chat. It's still very warm. So I want to talk about the whole dedication thing and have a little bit of a meta conversation about this. I don't know where to begin. Where do I begin? Well, let me start with Joe. So there were many reasons why I started doing this. You might have noticed that I read Plato online previously as well, and I just stopped when I felt like it, because I had no commitment for a certain period, which is usually my way of acting. I commit for a certain period. And then when I was making this, the idea started coming to me to do something with these text allocations. I was thinking of just doing a devotional reading thing, book type of thing. But that would take a lot of time. And not that this doesn't take time, but it's not nearly as much. Because it's a game, because I'm playing monastery, I don't feel as obliged to really do research and text analysis and those types of things. So this idea popped in my mind, also because I became convinced that Mr. Rochester needs reading too. So he was my motivation. I needed to read to him. And I was thinking of doing this. And then Folly started his unsolicited reading group. And he began with Kierkegaard, I think. I will share the link, because one day, I'm not sure how long he's going to do this, so jump in there while you can, because he's going to become really busy in the near future. I have prophetic vision, maybe I'm just really good at deduction, like adding up 1 plus 1. One day, because this is still open because it's far in the future, he could decide to go another path. By all means, that's his prerogative. But possibly in 20 or 40 years, you're gonna, if you now join his reading group, you're gonna be able to tell people, you know what, years ago, I was in a reading group with Joseph Foley. And then they're going to say, the Joseph Foley. And you will be able to say, yes, the Joseph Foley. So I highly recommend you join his Substack and reading group. Oh, yes, Kierkegaard. So I tried reading Kierkegaard in the past. I've got his, on my red shelf, Fear and Trembling, The Sickness Unto Death, and Either Or. And it's like the favorite author of Christopher Mastropietro, whom is my Plato. So I have the highest regards for the man, but I just couldn't. Kierkegaard simply doesn't speak to me. And when I was reading it with the unsolicited reading group, he didn't speak to me either. But Joe did. Joe's writing on Kierkegaard really spoke to me. And one of the things he wrote about was commitment. And that really moved me, and then I was, okay, I should commit to something. And then I committed to this. Because this is a definite period, because it's reading Plato in 1 year. It's a year. It's not that I can just stop whenever I want to. And so I started doing this, and so far so good. Before I started, I spoke with Ryan, one of my brothers. I've mentioned him before about this, and I told him, like, I have a fear of failure, as most people do. And he said, but what would you see? As he's a businessman, amongst other things. He's also a beautiful soul. What would you see as, what is your standards, your criteria for failure? Because you need to make it explicit to know whether you succeed or fail. And I said, well, the only thing that I would consider failure is if I stop, because really I'm doing it for myself and for Mr. Rochester. And the only legitimate reason for me to stop would be if he dies. If Mr. Rochester dies, I could stop. I don't need to continue, because I have been going on a very interesting and very unexpected side quest. So I've been a little bit distracted about the fact that this is for Mr. Rochester. I'm really loving the side quest, and I was also thinking today, maybe the side quest of life is what builds character and help form who we are. That it's not just about keeping your eye on the goal and going there, but it's becoming someone, becoming a character through these side quests you embark on and participate in. And yeah, so stopping would be, for me, failure. And that's why I haven't stopped thus far. Also because Mr. Rochester is still alive. I don't know if that is dedication. Another sentence of Alex that is totally out of context. Everyone has the experience of choice. I don't always have the experience of choice. And with this very much, I do not have the experience of choice. And it's funny sometimes if you watch yourself react in certain situations from this perspective that I didn't choose that reaction. There was something about the moment and the person I was interacting with that made me act like that. That makes it quite interesting, life, from the observer perspective. So that is the thing on dedication. If you struggle to follow or stay, or don't, it's not for everyone, and it shouldn't be for everyone, and maybe it's just not your path. Then so don't force yourself on a path that's not yours. Also, maybe it's not the time. It's like a book. Sometimes you start a book and you just can't read it, and then you come back to it a year later and it's like the best book you've ever read. Everything in life is like that. So don't force yourself into dedication. Just let it happen. But also go read Folly on Kierkegaard and choice and commitment. Then find what you love and commit to it, or to them. Because I think my dedication here is more to a person becoming people than to anything else. I hope this helps. See you tomorrow.